Saturday morning to you, and welcome to Weekend Recharge. I'm Maria Larosa.
And I'm Chris Warren in for Paul Goodlow for what can be called the upteenth weekend. We can't keep track in some cases. Thunderstorms will threaten weddings, ball games, and other weekend events.
We can't say it enough. When thunder roars, head indoors. Don't do what these people did last night in New York State. Watch this late tonight. All right, let's start in parts of the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. You've got a few showers around Pittsburgh, heads up State College, Altoona, Johnstown. You've got Parkersburg with some lightning and thunder that woke you up a little early, about ready to cross over into West Virginia. Nothing warned, but again, early start to some of the locally heavy rainfall. There's Chicago. You're in pretty good shape right now. You saw with that live picture, you should get that morning run along Lakeshore Drive. But as Chris was pointing out, plentiful moisture. Those dew points in the 70s, my goodness. Then you've got disturbances rolling along that active jet. And then you have at the surface a stationary front, a boundary that's not moving. All of those things going to help focus that moisture. Showers and thunderstorms going to continue right along this line basically this weekend and into next week. Notice where there's a lack of rainfall, big high pressure, big heat, one of our other big stories. So today, Chicago, Milwaukee, plan on showers and thunderstorms, all capable of putting down a lot of heavy rain and gusty winds. Tomorrow, pretty big area where we're expecting some of those heftier showers and thunderstorms, and then even on into Monday. And you notice a lot of the same cities in those areas: St. Louis, Louisville, Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Albany, all that saw that severe weather yesterday. So the rainfall totals, when you look at this map, it's a broad brush of maybe 2 to 3 in a lot of places. Some areas picking up 3+, but what you're not going to see is some of those thunderstorms, local thunderstorms that could be putting that down in one shot. So with that said, if you're going to be doing some outdoor activities, Pittsburgh, for example, look at how rainy and unsettled the next few days are. Got to keep it tuned to the weather. A lot of camping. It's camping season and camp season, so got to make sure you have an eye on the radar.
It's also hot season in many places. Still ahead on Weekend Recharge. Yikes indeed. It is hot, and we know, everyone has different thresholds of how hot is hot, right? And oftentimes it's that 90-degree mark for so many people where it really gets uncomfortable and it really becomes a little too hot to handle.
Personally am very delicate, so mine might be
like
a
around 83, 84, and we're like, well.
Exactly, but meteorologist Mike Seidel went searching for just that answer.
Yeah, and we're going to get close to each one of those. So it's going to be a degree or two, Maria. We'll have to wait and see. And oftentimes people say, if it's going to be 98 or 99, just give me the record, make it 100.
I am all for that. And we know very well that saying it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Right. And that's the case in the southeast, but also into the northeast. And you brought up a good point earlier with looking at the dew points. When you have that much moisture in the air, it is really hard to cool off. So although we're going to focus on the high temperatures, you got to keep in mind, we're not cooling off all that much overnight, and that's kind of important. Look at New York City. You're out there right now. It's 77 degrees, and you haven't even really seen the sun come up all that long. 83 in D.C. So by this afternoon, New York, you're into the mid-80s. You're at 90 in D.C., but those dew points are into the upper 60s. Your overnight lows are going to stay in the upper 60s, lower 70s for the next few days. Even tomorrow into the mid and upper 80s. This is really just half the story. You got to factor in that humidity too. It's that time of year. So you look at Washington, D.C. This is actually the heat index forecast, probably a number that's most important this time of year. It stays at or above 90 for the next week, and we really could say that for many cities in the Northeast, including in and around.
But all of a sudden, boom. And we highlighted it for you too, just in
case.
A little bit easier.
Exact. Fancy. Super fancy. We got a highlight in the
tropics. We have another little circle. We do that.
Right.
We try to make things as easy as possible for you, especially on a Saturday morning. Just getting up, trying to recharge you, get you going. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at this right now, and we'll show you the little highlight.
It is 1/2 as Weekend Recharge rolls on. I'm Maria Larosa.
And I'm Chris Warren. The morning time is going underway. It's developing, and also we're following a developing situation in Washington State. Bad weather.
Talk about the top 3 stories that we'll be covering for you in addition to that breaking news. A lot of it revolves around heavy rain and thunderstorms. So story number 1, definitely the heavy rain and rounds of storms into next week. You see these rainfall totals, 5 to 8, but yes, even an additional 8 to 12 inches in some of those areas that we've been talking nonstop about in the last month, looking at all that heavy rain. Being helped along with that, of course, the severe weather. Today we're tracking in western Texas and parts of New Mexico, but you know it's not going to stay there. We'll track it as it moves east as well. And then also, big story into next week, temperatures 5 to 15 degrees above average all across the southeast. Heat waves will be underway in the south. We'll talk about
it's meandering right up along the Mexican coast.
So we have a few days with those kinds of impacts, so we're not looking at anything major, but it is vacation season, it is honeymoon season, so we want to make sure everybody's up to date, not to mention what we're watching in the Atlantic Basin. So we've got a couple things going on.
Things are a little active right now.
They're getting active. 'Tis the season, right? All right, let's talk about Tropical Storm Carlos first. As of the latest advisory, max winds at 70 miles per hour, and you see why. They still have a pretty steady cluster of showers and thunderstorms that are holding together, but it's also running into a good amount of shear right now. We think that maybe in the next day or two, that will ease up, and shear is no good for a tropical system, so that's why it may be taking its time strengthening anymore. But the official forecast continues its slow journey here, maybe picking up a little bit more of a northwestward movement here, so that by Monday evening, 75-mile-per-hour storm. So we could still be looking at a hurricane here. Right now, though, just tropical storm. With that said, still impacts being felt along the coast of Mexico. Tropical storm watches in yellow. That means the possibility of tropical storm conditions, including those gusty winds up to that level, are possible. Meanwhile, on the other side, you see the circle, and you see a cluster of showers and thunderstorms. This is an area of investigation, Invest 91L, and right now it is just a persistent cluster of showers and thunderstorms. And there's a 30% chance now over the next 5 days of further development. So not looking terribly favorable, but obviously enough, given the time of year and its location, that we got to keep an eye on it. And it's certainly in some pretty toasty water, or over some toasty water, and that's one of those, the fuels for tropical systems. I mean, water temperatures, see temperatures into the 80s, and you see a lot of the darker shades of red. We're talking mid and upper 80s here. The problem is you have the Yucatan Peninsula, and land isn't a great strengthener of tropical systems. But computer models taking this area of low pressure and bringing it over the Gulf of Mexico and towards the Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana. So it is running into some shear, so there is some things to inhibit any further development. Regardless, we do think some of that moisture will manage to continue its movement to the northwest and make it to the Gulf Coast. So that deep tropical moisture, whether it's officially tropical anything, will continue its move towards the coast here, time frame being Monday into Tuesday, adding to all of the storminess that we're seeing in that part of the world, adding to incredible rainfall.